Good evening. Welcome to tonight's live stream. I'm going to get started in a minute. I just need to let everybody know that the stream is on the air. Good evening, Universal Black 72. Glad to see you here. I'm going to get right into tonight's topic, and tonight's topic is actually based on several comments I've gotten from black female viewers on my videos about Telbo Rackins, who is also known as Telvin Osborne, the black man who wound up losing his life when his white baby mama wound up shooting and killing him after a night of drinking. Now, in a previous video that a viewer requested that I make, this viewer wanted to know what happened as related to this Telvin Osborne, and I basically explained to them the core reasons why Telvin Osborne had such self-hatred of black people, and those foundations basically were rooted in the way he was raised, primarily, as I believe, in a single mother household. Now, as I looked at these statements that Telbo Rackins made, I just looked at them and I just basically wound up shaking my head at several of these statements, which were extremely self-hating, including ones that he said that he doesn't fight white boys but would go out here and beat up a black person. And he's made other statements like things like saying that he would participate in sexual deviancy with a white dog before he would get involved with a black woman. And one of the most disturbing statements that I heard him post on social media was this statement where he said, "My name is Telbo Rackins, but when you see me, I'm white." Now, that statement right there basically showed me a foundation of self-hatred that possibly wound up starting when this guy was very young, and he had to be raised in a culture of self-hatred, a culture of self-hatred, sadly, many black women don't want to talk about because they fear being held accountable for the way they were raising boys to become men. Now, what these black women don't understand is that all of us grew up in this culture of white supremacy, and this culture of white supremacy has had an impact on our minds and the way we see the world. This whole culture of white supremacy basically has become a part of our lives, and we've been imbibing this culture ever since we were born, and subconsciously been taking in this culture of black self-hatred. And this culture of black self-hatred is extremely self-destructive to black people, especially when they come from very abusive environments where black people basically take on the whole mindset of white supremacy. And as we take on that mindset of white supremacy, we go out here and abuse ourselves. And as we abuse ourselves, what we do is basically go out here and wind up taking on the culture of hatred that the white supremacist projects onto us in a quest to get white acceptance. And that's what Telbo Rackins basically grew up in, a culture that many black women want to deny. Now, many black women out here, they want to deny that we have been raising children in a culture of white supremacy, and we don't want to see the damage that we do to those children, by going out here and just mistreating them the way the white supremacist mistreats us by dehumanizing us. And that's something nobody really wants to talk about, how we're raising these children and how we're raising these children to learn not to love themselves, but to hate themselves. Now, that whole foundation of self-hatred, I'm going in depth on in a video on Sunday, but I'm going to do it in this live stream as well. And a lot of black women don't want to say, hey, you're part of this problem. One, because they don't want to be accountable for their part. And two, they don't want to take a look at the culture they have been part of for the last 60 years. Now, over the last 60 years, as black women have wanted to assimilate into white society and want to get the same position as white women, they basically bought into the culture of feminism. And as they bought into the culture of white feminism, they didn't understand they were buying into a culture that was going to be detrimental to them. No, they thought they were going to be getting the same elevated social status that white women would receive. They thought they would be given the same honor as a white woman. But what they were being was misled by white supremacy into buying into this whole culture of feminism. In their quest to get white acceptance, they thought they were going to buy into this culture and be on the same economic and personal social level as white women. Unfortunately, what happened with the black women who embraced the feminist movement is that they wound up by taking on a bad deal where they were basically put in a second-class position as the de facto heads of the black community. Now, in this de facto position as head of the black community, yes, the black woman got power, but the whole thing was she got economic security through the welfare state and government, and many of these jobs through affirmative action. However, she didn't get emotional security, and she didn't get emotional security because the only way a woman can get emotional security is by being a part of God's natural order. And if she is not a part of God's natural order, she won't have that spiritual security, because that spiritual security comes from submitting to a man, and submitting to a man who is serving in God's order. But many black women wanted the economic security of white supremacy and did not want to trust in the men in their communities. And since they didn't want to trust in the men in their communities to be the stewards that God established to be their covering and provide for them, they looked to again go and be beguiled by these serpents of white feminism and white supremacy to get this security, and basically wanted to walk away from the men in their community because those men they didn't trust them to be those heads. Moreover, since they didn't have faith in those men, or didn't think that those men could meet the expectations of being the white standard of success, they wanted to get away from the black man, and wanted to get away from the black man because they wanted, in order to get the white supremacist welfare and their jobs to have economic security, they had to walk away from the black man. And since that black man could not meet their expectations or be able to provide for them, this is what is the foundation of many black single mothers' anger. It's the foundation of that anger. And when they go out here and have children with a black man, a lot of these women harbor a lot of anger at that black man, and they harbor that anger at that black man because that black man, in their eyes, could not go out here and meet their expectations of being this guy who could provide like a white man or give them a lifestyle like they see in the media that white men give white women, or go out here and elevate their status to this level of white women. This is what many black women are angry about as related to the men they get involved with. And as they get involved with a black man and things don't meet their standards and they have kids with that black man, what happens is those women have a lot of subconscious anger at that black man, who in many cases they have the DNA imprinted on them and the spirit imprinted on them of that man. And when they look at those children, what they do is they are angry at that man, and they take it out on those children. They take the anger out on those children, and as they take that anger out, they don't even know that they're doing it. And what they don't know is, as they, in their role as their mother, they are doing damage to those children. They're doing damage to those children because they are, especially in the case of black males, they are the child's first mother, first teacher. And again, as the first teacher, they're not coming at that child with a foundation of love. No, they're coming at that child with a foundation of anger, and coming at that child with a foundation of anger at the father that they take out on the child. And this is very destructive to black male children because the woman is angry at the child's father. And as they're angry at the child's father, again, as the first teacher, they're not teaching this boy to be loved. No, they start a foundation of anger at that child, and that anger starts laying the foundation for self-hatred because the child starts to think about themselves and wonder what's wrong with them for being black. That's the first thing that happens to that child as related to the damage that this woman does to the child as being indoctrinated into feminism and angry about the world not meeting the standards of giving her that world that she wants to have to be like that white woman. The other damage that she does to that son is she goes out and again, as the first woman he ever experiences, this is the first woman that this boy will ever experience in his life. And instead of him having that positive experience where he believes that he will be nurtured and loved by a black woman, no, what happens is this black woman, again, is seething with anger at this child's father. She's seething with frustration about this whole situation where she feels like she's on her own. She's very angry about the fact that this situation is one where she is not having a positive experience. And as she's angry, she takes it out on the boy because when she looks at the boy, because of the spirit and DNA of that man being imprinted on her, she projects that man onto her son. And as she projects that man onto her son, she does not show that boy love. No, what she shows is this boy all of the contempt and vitriol and anger that she has at that father, and that's where this boy starts to not be nurtured and loved, but he winds up being abused, and he winds up being abused by that mother, and it's that abuse that that boy suffers that I call the trauma from mama. And again, that trauma from mama, this is what starts the foundation of the self-hatred that this black boy has about himself as related to his image as a black person, because he sees not a positive reinforcement of being black where he's told that he's a good boy, he's a handsome boy, he's a nice boy, or he's just good the way he is. He's not, again, given that love. No, he's called a little MF. He's called a little N-word. He's, again, had all this anger directed at him. Moreover, he's getting slapped. He's getting yelled at. He's getting screamed at. And this boy, as he's seeing these emotional reactions from this deeply frustrated woman, this is where he makes a correlation that when it comes to black women are angry, black women are hostile, black women are violent and aggressive. And as this boy is in this home, dealing with all of this abuse directed at him, this trauma from mama lays the foundation for him not getting a positive experience with black women. And that experience with black women, again, winds up putting him on a road where he doesn't see black women in a positive light. And instead, what he sees is a black woman not as someone who would love him, but as someone who is an enemy. And as he's seeing his mother as someone who does not really love him the way he wants to be loved and nurtured, what happens is that same black male is put in front of white media. And as he's put in front of white media, the white supremacist goes out here elevating the white woman to the high standard of beauty, and also shows that white woman being soft and feminine, being cooperative and kind. And as this boy is imbibing this media, what he's being conditioned to believe is that a white woman is a more kinder, gentler woman than a black woman. And all the personal experiences he's having with black women, again, they basically are reinforcing an idea inside of his head. Oh, when it comes down to this black woman, she's aggressive, she's hard, she's masculine. But when it comes to this white female that they're seeing in this media, she's considered soft, she's considered kind, she's considered friendly, she's considered attractive. And as this black boy is growing up watching this media, as he's growing up watching this media, he's being conditioned to believe that this white female is considered to be more attractive, and this is being sold to him in much of the media that this boy is watching. In much of the media, this black male is sitting there watching this white woman being presented as someone who is attractive, someone who is desirable, someone who can go out here and have positive relationships. Meanwhile, your young black male, he's getting this reinforced with him in real time by his mother, who's putting all this trauma on this boy. And as she's putting all of this trauma onto this boy, she's basically, again, beating up this boy and doing the white supremacist job for him, where you're conditioning this boy not to love himself, but to go out here and hate his own woman, hate the woman who is a reflection of him. And many black women don't understand this. You sit there and try to talk to them, and they get all defensive. Oh, you're singling out single mothers. No, I'm singling out the way these boys are raised to be growing up in these environments that are leading to these black boys going out here and having this foundation of black self-hatred, like this Telbo Rackins. This Telbo Rackins, basically, or Telvin Osborne, this boy's foundation of self-hatred basically started out when he was young, started out when he was very young as a little boy. As a little boy, he grew up, again, in that type of abuse. And as he grew up in that type of abuse, he not only learned to not like anyone who looked like him, he learned not to even like being black. And when I look at this boy, this guy Telbo Rackins, or Telvin Osborne, he really reminds me a lot of a scene I saw in the movie Precious. Now, if anybody ever saw the movie Precious, there's a scene where the Precious character is combing her hair and looking in the mirror. And as she's looking in the mirror at herself, she doesn't see a black girl. No, what she sees is a blonde white woman. And she sees that blonde white girl because she's become disassociated with herself and detached from herself. And that's what that Telbo Rackins statement on Twitter about seeing himself as white reminded me of. And that type of disassociation happens when a person has been traumatized by someone who basically looks like them, abuses them, and they're looking to escape through a white identity because they basically, again, don't like being black because they've suffered so much trauma from from the first black woman in their lives, and that trauma from that first black woman in their lives, it's basically made it where their whole perception of self has become so distorted that they no longer even want to see a black person staring at them in the mirror. That's how deeply disassociated that person is, and that's what I started to see with this Telbo Rackins fella. I mean, this guy, again, he had such deep self-hatred for himself that he wanted to be a white person in every shape or form of it. He wanted whiteness because he associated whiteness with things that are positive. And again, this is what happens when you basically grow up in an environment where your whole development is completely messed up. And the late David Carroll tried to talk about this when he said in some cases that's why he believed black women were a psychological disorder, and he also said that whenever these women again raise the boy, they basically F him. When we look at Telbo Rackins or Telvin Osborne, this boy definitely was effed up because his whole frame of thinking, it was just he was just a complete wreck. He was a complete wreck all around because his whole mindset, and I will put it up once more. I mean, I want you to see this guy's whole mindset. I mean, this guy's whole mindset where he's sitting there, again, in one of these tweets, says, "My name, Telbo Rackins, but when you see me, I'm white." What does that say about this guy? I mean, this type of self-hatred is just on that Uncle Ruckus level. It's on that Uncle Ruckus level when you got a guy who's black, but he says, "When you see me, I'm white." Again, same thing that I saw in the movie Precious, where, again, when she was combing her hair, she did not see a black person. She saw a white person. And, again, that's disassociation, and the type of disassociation that someone has when, again, they're raised in a dysfunctional environment, the way Precious was raised, because Precious was raised by a single mother with deep-seated anger at her whole life situation, deep-seated anger, and in a toxic situation where she couldn't even care about her own child. I mean, this is the type of deep-seated anger that produces guys like Telbo Rackins. I mean, this is the environment nobody wants to talk about, I mean, in the black community, because many black women, they get defensive, and they get defensive because they basically don't want to be held accountable. And as they don't want to be held accountable, they basically want to go out here and go into shaming language, like the comments I received. I mean, I received several comments where when I started saying, hey, this guy, the roots of this guy were all about the single mother, this is where they started to lose it. And again, they started to lose it because they didn't want to be held accountable. Now, they had no problem when I made videos talking about divestment disaster and talking about this black man with a white woman, but they didn't want to go out here and watch the videos where I call out this guy as related to single mothers and the damage that is done to boys like this, because the damage that's done to boys like this, again, this trauma from mama, this is what leads to this boy not wanting to pursue relationships with black girls because the first woman in his life was so cruel and abusive to him that he no longer wants anything to do with his race. That's what happens here to black males like this, is that they suffer so much abuse that what they do is they become so traumatized that they cannot even think about pursuing a relationship with a black woman. Now, I've also seen a lot of guys get this same sort of perception in their adolescence, and again, they get this whole perception in their adolescence because a black girl that they like basically was really cruel to them, and as they get hurt by that girl, they go out here and they want to put it all on all black girls. And again, that's not fair to them, to all black girls as a collective. No, that's where usually a father comes in or another man comes in and lets him understand, you know, that's just that one girl and not to take it personal. But what happens in that case, is that the trauma from those black girls rejecting that guy has him, again, considering pursuing other racial options of women instead of taking a look at himself and taking a look objectively at himself to see, hey, am I approaching the right girls, or am I trying to approach the more popular girls, or am I just, again, really not understanding how things are working? That's where you have to have another man come in and, talk to your boy and let him know, yeah, the girl, she may not have liked you, but that's just how it is in the game. And, if it is, that doesn't mean it's about black girls. No, it means that maybe that's not the one for you. And if she's that nasty to you, then you wouldn't want to be in a relationship with her. Again, they never have that guy to sit down and talk to them like a man would about women. And that's why a lot of those guys basically wind up, again, look angry at black women. But in the case of those guys, again, there's no male figure to be a model for manhood or an example for manhood. And a lot of times there's no guy out there to be that example. And that's another reason why we get these guys like Telbo, Rackins, who basically, again, want to be white, because usually with these guys, they grow up not only watching a lot of media where the white females are softer and kinder, they're also seeing the white males. And as they're seeing the white males in media and life, they see the white males doing well, and instead of having that black man to model manhood for them, they have a white male out there. And that's what happened with Telbo, Rackins, or Telvin Osborne. He basically was seeing a lot of white males out here, again, being a picture of success, and with no males to him to see being black having success, he was out here, again, aspiring to be like those white men, and basically saw those white men as men he admired, because when it comes down to boys, they have to see a man that they admire. And if they don't see a black man out here that they admire, what they do is start admiring white men. And as they start admiring white men the same way black women deify and worship white men, what happens with those black males is they start going out here and looking up to those white men. And that's what happened with Telbo Rackins. He identified success with being white and did not identify success with being black. And that's why he was out here thinking, oh, I want to be white, wants to be white. He basically is someone who, again, wanted to be white because he didn't see black men in his community the same way I grew up. Now, when I grew up, I saw lots of black men in my neighborhood having jobs. I saw my father. I saw my brother. I saw men going to work, and I didn't understand how that had an impact on me growing up in the 80s, just seeing black men being men in real life, seeing black men going out here putting on clothes and going to work, seeing black men going out here and working jobs, seeing black men behind the counter of a business. All that has an impact on a boy, so that when he looks at black men, he sees a man like himself and sees a reflection of himself. That's what he sees out here, and it gives him a sense of pride, a sense of confidence about himself, and makes him say, yeah, I can go out here and do things. Yeah, I can go out here and accomplish things. That's what a black man, seeing another black man, does for a black boy. But in the case of a guy like Telbo Rackins, he didn't see a black man. He didn't see a black woman. And when he saw a black woman, he saw a black woman being cruel to him. He didn't see no black man there to, again, give him any structure. And this is where he got this foundation of self-hatred. Again, a foundation of self-hatred where he wanted to transpose whiteness on himself and transpose whiteness on himself in an effort to gain white acceptance, because he thought white acceptance equaled success, and he thought white acceptance was something that, again, would give him success. And again, these foundations of self-hatred, again, nobody wants to talk about that aspect as related to this dude. We have some deep foundations of self-hatred that black boys grow up with. You black boys grow up with this self-hatred again, it's reinforced not only with the first teacher and the first people in their lives, it's also reinforced in these schools, because in these public schools, when you go to these public schools, you got the white female teacher, again, setting the boy up for special ed, and then you've got much of this so-called black literary canon, which is very anti-black, because the black literary canon, in and of itself, never has any black character ever winning. I mean, if you read any of these books by these so-called authors like Richard Wright and many of these other books, they demonize the black man. They basically have the black man losing all the time. If he's the hero of a story, they have the black man always failing in life. And that, again, is done by design so that you can not ever see yourself as a success, but be out here hating yourself, and again, hating yourself and participating in self-destructive decisions that are detrimental to you. Self-destructive decisions that are extremely detrimental to you. And when it comes down to black men, we have to watch the type of stuff we go out here and watch the stuff that we read, because if you're reading stuff where you're always losing, it creates a self-fulfilling prophecy. This is why I go out here on the SJS Direct imprint and write books where we win, because it's important to see ourselves winning and to get a winner's mindset. I may do a whole live stream on that subject of seeing yourself as a winner. This was something that I talked about with one of my family members, and they applied it to their own life and got great success from it. But the whole thing is, you have to see yourself as a winner, because white supremacy wants you to see yourself as a loser and see yourself as a loser so that you can go out here and fulfill their narrative, because their narrative is to present you as a failure, and you're not a failure. But you have to, the way you break out of that whole failure mindset is you've got to break out of that whole pattern of thinking negatively about yourself and break out of that whole mindset of self-hatred. Because that whole mindset of self-hatred, it basically makes it where you don't see yourself as someone who has value or someone that is somebody special. I mean, God made you, and He made you for a purpose, and this is what many black men don't understand. They don't understand that God made you for a purpose and made you to be someone. But the white supremacists, what they want you to do is, again, not see yourself as anybody important. And again, they want you to be filled with self-hatred, like this guy Telbo Rackins or Telvin Osborne, and not see a way for you to take your own power, but go out here and think that his white woman is better for you, and looking for white acceptance is better for you. But what you're doing when you do that is, not only do you buy into a whole mindset of self-hatred where you devalue yourself and put yourself last, but what you're doing is, again, lowering your whole value by looking for this white acceptance from a person who would never accept you and never respect you. That's what many black men don't understand about self-hatred. Self-hatred is basically you working against yourself, because you're basically saying that you love someone else and you're making an idol out of somebody else. You're making an idol out of somebody else, which is what God doesn't want you to do. Remember, in His commandments, He said, "Ye shall have no other gods before me." And that's what Telbo Rackins was doing, putting a white person as a god before himself and participating in idolatry. And as he participated in this idolatry, he basically was out here making it like this person was better than he was. And again, that's selling yourself short. Selling yourself short because, again, God loves you. He made you for a purpose. He made you to be better than settling to be less than what you are. And again, when it comes to people who hate themselves, they basically, again, sell themselves short and never expect the best for themselves. Now, Kiefer Kifalam says he's 26 and he's struggling to find a job. Well, when I was your age, I was struggling to find a job. I just came out of AmeriCorps, and I was struggling to find a job. It's always been hard to find jobs, especially for young black men. It's always been hard for us, and it's always been a struggle because a lot of times we have people working against us in the system of white supremacy. You have many employers who project stereotypes onto the black man where they think that he's lazy. They think he's an angry black man. They think that you're not capable of doing the job. But you cannot let that deter you, and you have to keep persevering. I mean, I myself have been out of work at a full-time job after losing a job in 2008 for 15 years, but I'm still following God, and I'm still persevering. I'm not letting myself go down. I mean, I started my own thing, and again, started my own thing because it was something I wanted to do on the side, but you just can't give up. You have to keep on pushing. I mean, that's what I had to do out here, and that's what I'm advising you to do. I mean, I make lots of workplace videos, and the whole thing is that with that whole situation, you have to keep pushing, and I'm still pushing. I mean, I've been again looking for work. I know how hard it is out here. I know how you have to deal with a lot of different things, from people acting funny, people acting weird, and people just not really, again, really being serious, and you deal with all this, and I've been dealing with it for years. You can just watch my videos. I have been dealing with this for a long time, but I'm still trying to hang in there. Maybe one day I'll get that job, but until then, I'm working on my own stuff and doing my own thing, and doing my own thing because, again, this is what you have to do, and if you don't have to work in these companies, I mean, if you can, but if you can't, it just happens. Again, a lot of these companies are filled with a lot of feminists and a lot of people who create an HR brick wall to keep people out. But maybe one day you'll be able to get that break. I mean, sometimes it works that way for some people, but I've been in that same boat, and I'm still in that same boat. It's just something that we all have to deal with, and we have to work with as things. Now, Rashad says that he doesn't feel safe around black women. Now, I understand that, yeah, there are some black women that are bad out here, but when it comes down to some of these black women, you have to take a look at yourself. I mean, this is something a lot of black men don't want to do because they like the black women out here, they don't want to take accountability, but we have to take a look at ourselves because, again, if this is the type of woman who's gravitating towards you, where they are really raggedy and ratchet, then you have to take a look at yourself and start making changes in yourself. This was something that I had to do with myself way back when I was about 16 years old. I had to realize that, if I don't want these toxic people around me, then I gotta change who I am. And that's what I prayed to God to do when I changed my life at 16 years old. And you have to start making efforts to change what direction you want to go in, because toxic females only are there when you radiate negative energy. When you start radiating positive energy, what happens is those women don't want nothing to do with you. The cheaters, the bust downs, the women who basically are there because they're low-hanging fruit. Once you start working on yourself, once you start raising your standards, the quality women, they're the ones who are going to want to be attracted to you because you're moving in a positive direction. And again, when you start working on positive goals and start working on yourself, those toxic females, they basically are just going to disappear. And they're going to disappear because you're taking the lead in your life. 2, you're out here working on goals, and your whole perception of self is going to change, where you're going to start saying, I don't want to deal with no chick who ain't about nothing. I don't want to be dealing with no chick who's just out here talking a lot of mess. No, I want to be out here and working on my goals. And if this woman doesn't want to help meet my goals, then I ain't got time for her. That's what happens when you start focusing on yourself and start putting yourself first. I mean, you got to put yourself first and start getting yourself together. I mean, this is something that you got to do as related to yourself. I mean, I know it's tough out here, again, with black women. I know it's tough out here with this job market. I've been out here in this job market. I know how a lot of people don't like the heterosexual black man who has his mind right, because having your mind right means that you're going to really start to get your stuff together. And a lot of these chicks and these white guys, they can't compete. So they get scared when they see that type of black man. And that's why they prefer a Telbo Rackins or a Telvin Osborne over brothers like like me and other brothers, because what brothers like me represent are competition, but guys like Telbo Rackins are not competition. No, they're not competition for anyone, because they're scavenging for attention, scavenging for approval, because they want to go out here and be self-deprecating to white people. They want to be the pet black person. They want to be the pet that gets patted on the head by white folks. And again, that's what self-hatred has you doing, sacrificing your intangibles of manhood, such as your dignity, such as your self-respect, such as your self-worth. I mean, this is what Telbo Rackins was sacrificing, and again, sacrificing because he did not have that foundation in love from parents who truly cared about him to teach him he was somebody who deserved respect, somebody who deserved love, somebody who deserved to be cared about. This is what he didn't get from his mother, his first teacher. This is what he didn't get from that first woman. And if you look at both of those women, his first woman and his second, and the woman he got involved with, what happened with that is he got involved with the same woman. I mean, he got involved with a mother who, again, didn't care about him, and he also got involved with a woman who didn't care about him, because only a woman who didn't care about him would be cleaning a loaded firearm in his presence. Only a woman who didn't care about him would even take out a firearm in his presence. I mean, that's the real issue that he didn't see, that, again, the woman who you start with is the woman that you get when you don't have your mind together. I mean, a lot of guys don't see how the first woman they're involved with, this black single mother, is basically leading to them to being with toxic white women or toxic foreign women, and being with toxic women because they have not worked out these issues inside of themselves. And as they haven't worked out these issues inside themselves of self-hatred, they basically go from one toxic black mother to a toxic white or non-black woman, and while they're thinking they're getting something different, it's actually the same thing, because they have not worked out those issues of self-hatred to learn how to love themselves, because the whole thing is what they're doing is what the swirlers and divestors do in getting the same person but a different color. That's what happens to guys who have self-hatred. They basically go from the black mother who basically abuses them to going out here to getting with the white woman who abuses them or preys and takes advantage of them, or the foreign woman who preys and takes advantages of them. That's what happens to these guys. They don't work out their stuff, and that's something we as black men have to start doing, start working out our stuff as related to this whole concept of self-hatred, because this self-hatred, again, puts us on a bad road, where we start participating in the same self-destructive behaviors that the swirlers and divestors do. The swirlers and divestors participate in the same pattern of behavior, in the same paradigm of failure, because they have not taken a look at themselves and this foundation of black self-hatred, and have not gone out here to get the counseling that would help them to heal and start to learn how to love themselves, because it's not the color of the skin of the person, it's the content of their character that's the core. And again, the content of the character of the person who raised them, again, was filled with hate, and that's putting them on a road to hating themselves, and that puts them on a road to being preyed on by predators who see the weakness in these men, and as they see the weakness in these men, they basically are out here, and they're going out here following in a pattern where they're thinking, oh, this trauma from mama, this black woman, again, the trauma is due to her being a black woman. No, the trauma has been passed on to you, and then you pass it on to others, and you pass it on to others because you don't know how to love yourself, because you don't know what love is. You never experience what love is. No, you experience what white supremacy tells you. Oh, white people equal love. That's what happens with a lot of black guys out here. We see, oh, in white media, the white woman is seen as kind and nurturing and loving. And what I find is interesting, if you go to any media out here, you never see that many images of soft, feminine black women. And what's even sadder about it is I remember making a video a couple of years ago talking about soft, feminine black women, and black women got angry, not understanding they were reacting the way white supremacy wanted them to react, to believe that being soft and feminine has nothing to do with being black, and buying into the idea that the white supremacy has to take away your femininity, to take away your softness, to take away your kindness and your sweetness. That's what the white supremacist wants to take away from the sisters. It wants to take away that so that they can say, oh, the white woman is softer, kinder, more loving, and that's the lie that the white supremacist wants to sell people. That's the lie that they want to go out here and sell people and make them believe that, oh, a black woman can't be soft and feminine, a black woman cannot be sexy, a black woman cannot be beautiful. No, those are things reserved for white women. That's what's put in media. And again, this masculinization of the black woman, this is something the white supremacist uses as related to demonizing black women and demonizing black mothers and making it where the black mother is not seen as attractive. It's basically, again, a whole process, again, with this self-hatred. They basically want to, again, create the negative perceptions of black women in your mind. And this is something that, again, they don't want you to talk about because, again, the white supremacist wants to, again, keep you, black men, in a place where you're sitting there, oh, I don't like black women, I don't want anything to do with it. They want to keep you divided, and that's why they demonize her image, and again, have her buying into these ideas about being this mama who inflicts trauma, again, this hard, masculine woman who is cruel and bitter because she basically, again, bought into ideas from white supremacy that she needed to be like a white woman, but she cannot be a white woman. No, that's a completely different thing. And again, this is what happens a lot of times as related to things. Now, Derek Johnson asks, you mentioned Mammy hating on their children because of frustration on males. Yeah, that frustration starts with, they hate on the children because they're angry that they didn't get the lifestyle of this white woman. They're angry at the child's father because they could not provide that lifestyle to provide her a place where she could be like a white woman. And because she can't get that lifestyle that she sees in Madison Avenue in Hollywood that the white woman has, she gets angry because that man can't meet that expectation. And when that man can't meet that expectation, what she does is first take out her anger on that man, and that drives the man away. Then, after they drive the man away, they take the anger out on the kids. That's what happens with a lot of these black women who become single mothers. They bought into a covert contract from white supremacy that told them that they could be like white women if they embraced feminism. They thought if they took their jobs and they would get that security like that white woman, they thought they could be like that white woman. But the whole thing is, a black woman cannot be in the same lifestyle as a white woman in the system of white supremacy. No, she accepted a second best position when she drove her man out of her life for economic security at that job with that welfare state. She basically put herself in a second-class position and, again, doesn't want to take that accountability. So she takes it out on the kids, and takes it out on the kids because she's angry at them, at the world, because she didn't get her American dream, and that anger turns into the anger she takes out on those kids, and that leads to those kids getting that self-hatred as related to themselves because she hates the fact that she made this deal and it didn't go the way she expected, and she winds up angry, and that anger is passed on to her children. And again, this is how we get guys like Telbo, Rackins, or Telvin Osborne. This is how we get guys like this because they basically get no love from their mother. No, they get no love. And since they don't get any love from their mothers, what happens to these guys is they equate love with white. They equate positiveness with white. They equate success with white. They look to fit themselves into black boxes that are acceptable to white people because they become spellbound. And I talk about this in depth in my novel, Spellbound. Again, they want to fit themselves into that black box that will make them acceptable to white people. And what's even worse with the people who have self-hatred, excuse me, is they go out here and they get out of the black box, take a spray can and start spray painting the box white, and spray paint the box white because they want to be accepted by white people. They want to be accepted by white people so badly, and they want to fit in with white people. I mean, it's just so bad, and so bad all around. I mean, this is what happens with these type of guys. Again, this self-hatred really, it can really run deep and basically just destroy a person's whole perception of reality, destroy your whole perception of reality where you can't even see anything good about a black person. And that's what happens with this guy, Telvin Osborne, or Telbo Rackins. I mean, his whole perception of reality was so warped. All he could see was white as good, white as love, white as having success, and it basically made it where he didn't even see people as people because that white girlfriend, that Grace, whatever her name is, basically that white woman, she wasn't even a person, she was just an attachment that he used to elevate his social status as related to going out here and throwing a middle finger back up at black people because he wanted to show his contempt for black people. I mean, all he wanted to do was show so much contempt for black people because he didn't love black people. No, he wanted to go out here and say he had arrived and had the success because he thought he was accepted by white people. But the whole thing is that this spellbound black person was not accepted. He just was someone who they paid attention to, sort of like a pet or a mascot. That's what they basically saw him as. He didn't have any value as a person outside of being that token they could spend whenever they needed to have their I'm not racist money. Whenever they needed to have their I'm not racist money, they go bring out this black guy who, again, doesn't have love for himself because, again, a guy who loves himself, again, he's going to be around people and positive people. His energy's going to be positive. His whole viewpoint is going to be positive. I mean, he's going to be attracting the positive people to himself, and that's what happens with people who, again, understand themselves. They understand, hey, if I want to change, again, I got to change the circles I'm around, and again, that's about having goals that you want to achieve, having things you want to accomplish, and again, that's not about seeking out the acceptance of white people and thinking white is better because white really isn't better at all. No, when it comes down to white, that's a lie that we tell ourselves because a lot of us come into this, again, with the spellbound mindset thinking, oh, this white means better, white means excellent. No, black can also mean excellent. Black has always held a standard of excellence. If you look at history, if you look at history, you can see lots of standards of excellence. That was one of the things that I am grateful for growing up in the 80s because I always saw black success all around me. And I'm not talking about bootlicks. I'm talking about regular brothers and sisters just going out here and putting in that work to build themselves up, putting in that work to improve themselves. I always saw black people out here, and what always again inspired me as a boy to say, hey, I could go out here and do things. I can go out here and accomplish things, and I'm not seeking anybody's validation or approval. I mean, when you love yourself, you do things because you want to do them. You do them because you like doing them, and it makes you happy when you see somebody who looks like you is out here. Whenever you see people who look like you and are like you, it really makes you proud. I mean, I remember in 2000 working at Strive and working around a black CEO and working around black employees in a business. It just made me proud every day to go to work. And going out here and reading comics like Milestone Comics and seeing black people, again, making our own heroes, seeing people like Bill Cosby, again, ushering in the golden age of entertainment, And that, again, all that, again, showed me that, again, if we go out here and love ourselves, we can go out here and make images of ourselves that are strong. We can make stories about ourselves that influence us, because those type of stories influence me. And the whole thing is that I see, again, a lot of images of black people who love themselves. But the sad part is that you've got folks out here like this Telbo Rackins or Telvin Osborne, who grow up, again, in toxic environments. And as they grow up in these toxic environments, what happens to them is that they get this foundation in self-hatred that is rooted in white supremacy, this self-hatred that comes from their mothers. Again, this is not just me singling out the black single mother, but this is the household that these boys come from, where they basically get this foundation of abuse and cruelty. This foundation of abuse and cruelty basically winds up, again, doing damage to these young boys at an early age. And that damage that's done to them at an early age, what that does is it creates, again, that trauma from mama. And that trauma from mama is burned on these boys as they grow into adulthood. What's going on, Mobile Maze? Glad to see you here, talking about the self-hate, about deconstructing this Telbo Rackins and the foundations of black self-hatred. And again, as they get caught up in this, they are so hurt by mama, they're so hurt by auntie, they're so hurt by black women that they don't see a positive experience they have with a black woman. And since they don't see a positive experience they have with a black woman, what happens to these poor boys is that they start seeing white women as the one they want to pursue relations with, because they see, oh, a relationship with a white woman is positive in these movies and TV shows. This white teacher is, in some cases, treating me a little bit nicer than this black woman that I go home to. This black woman who I go home to, her face is frowned up. She never smiles at me. She never hugs me. She never reads me stories. She never talks to me. And again, what happens is that these boys basically, again, with this trauma from mama, what this does is, again, makes it where they don't see a black woman as a viable partner. And this goes into adolescence when they start looking to pursue relationships with black girls, the same black girls who have been abused by their mama, because the mothers see them as competition. What those girls do is they start acting, sadly, just like the mama, start acting just like the mama. And as they act just like the mama, they basically reinforce the trauma that they get from mama. And as they reinforce the trauma that they get from mama, that basically, again, reinforces the idea in the boy's mind that the black girl and the black female, well, as a collective, is not someone they can see as a viable partner. And that's shown in the contempt that we saw in the statements that Telbo Rackins made about black girls and black women. This was shown in the things that he said. I mean, I'm seeing where he was getting this trauma and more trauma. And this happens to, again, a lot of black boys in their adolescence, that does even more damage to them regarding their perception as related to the women in their communities. I mean, this is done, and again, it further scars them. And when they see, hey, I can't get any attention from any of the black girls because they want Pookie and Ray Ray, this is where they start going, I don't want to deal with the black woman at all. Instead, they'll deal with the white female, and they'll deal with the white female who has basically been sold to them by white supremacy as this perfect person to the point where they can't even see any of the character flaws in white women to see them as people. And since they can't see the white woman as a person that with flaws, they see her as the fantasy ideal presented to them by the mainstream media, and they start thinking that, oh, this white woman is a better person than the black woman, a more attractive person than the black woman, a better partner because the media told them. And since the media told them that this was a good person, this is reinforced to them. And as it's reinforced to them, they're sitting there thinking, oh, I am a winner because I'm going to be just like the guys on TV. I'm going to be just like the guys in the movies. I'm going to be a success just like those people that I'm seeing that are having that success. And again, while they're thinking they're getting success, the irony is that they're buying into this self-hatred, and buying into this self-hatred that basically, again, is destroying them from the inside, and destroying them from the inside because the self-hatred basically has them looking to be outside of their own, of people who look like them, and having love and sharing love with people like them. That's what's the sad part about a Telbo Rackins. That's the saddest part about a dude like this. I mean, a dude like this, again, it's tragic as related to things that what started all of this, again, is this foundation of self-hatred, a foundation in self-hatred that he, again, just wasn't aware of, because a lot of times with us, we're not aware of these patterns because this is part of our early development and how we learn when we're young. This is what happens when we learn when we're young, what we're conditioned to learn when we're little. I mean, when we're very little, this is what we're learning from our first teacher and our mothers in our lives. A lot of our mothers teach us this stuff, and they don't understand the importance of being careful about how you behave in front of your children. You've got to be very careful, because what happens is the things that you teach them when they're little have an impact on them when they become adults. And again, when you go out here and you have this self-hatred, this can, again, wind up with you teaching your kids things that don't teach them to love themselves and love being black. And that's something that many parents don't really think about. But I sit there and I say, you got to think about this. You have to think about it, because, again, if you don't teach your kids to love themselves and to love being black, then you could have a boy who grows up like a Telbo Rackins or Telvin Osborne and grow up to become a man in crisis, because that's what happened here with Telvin Osborne. He grew up not to become a man, but grew up to become a man in crisis. A man in crisis who basically got involved with this white woman just because she was white, and basically, again, because he saw her as a god, basically didn't see how he was basically, again, living in sin, and basically putting himself on a road to hell because he was worshiping this white woman. And one day, again, this false god basically showed its contempt for him, because a lot of times when people worship people, what happens is people become contemptuous of them, and on some level, again, they start to feel so comfortable about expressing their contempt. I mean, this is something that many people don't see about this whole story. But when I look at this story, again, of Telbo Rackins, the foundations in it are of black self-hatred. And we have to, again, start really taking a serious look at black self-hatred, because black self-hatred is something that has a devastating effect on the black mind. And I started exploring it in my own writing with books like Isis Dark Incubus, because I understood, again, how deep this self-hatred can be, and how the self-hatred can basically, again, affect the perceptions of black men and black women regarding ourselves. And it affects us because it keeps us from being able to love people. It keeps us from being able to get close to people. It puts a distance and a wall between us and makes it where we can't really get close to the people that we love, and we can't see people as being deserving of love who look like ourselves. I mean, one of the things that is important about self-love is when you see somebody who looks like you, you see them as someone who you can love and is deserving of being loved. That is what a man or woman who loves themselves wants to do. When they see a black person, they go, oh, I love that black person, and I want to see that black person have success. I want to see that black person win. I want to see that black person do well. When you see another black person and you see them and you know that they're doing the right thing, you're like, oh, I'm glad for that brother. He's doing right. He's got his money right. He's got himself together. I mean, this guy's doing good. You're not sitting up there hating on another brother or another sister or jealous of another sister. You can respect that person and say, hey, I'm glad to see that person doing well. And you see another brother out here doing something, you want to help them out and help them get success, like I try to do with some of the many black comic creators out here. I try to, again, get the word out about their projects when they have their projects out. I'll have no problem sitting down talking to brothers and sisters about doing stuff that's positive, because I like to see black people having success. And again, that's what happens when you love other black people and you care about other black people. You want to see them have that success. You want to see them do well. You don't want to tear down other black people, like what I saw with this Telbo Rackins in his social media tweets. No, you want to see black people, and you see people like yourself. You want to have relationships with people like yourself, and because you want to see somebody who reflects you and your values and your ideas, and see that person. I mean, that's what people who love other people want to do. And again, we have to break out of this whole pattern with people with this whole toxic self-hating mindset, because life is too short to sit there in self-hatred, because self-hatred basically puts you on a road to self-destruction, a road to physical, mental, and spiritual self-destruction, and it's not really good for us as a people. No, black folks, we got to get out of this mindset of self-hatred, and we've got to look at the roots of it. That's something some of these black women were not really able to accept when I made the video talking about single mothers. They didn't understand that I'm trying to help you understand that there is a foundation to this, type of self-hatred. This type of male doesn't become a man in crisis unless there's a woman who taught him all this. And again, we have to ask who taught him all of this, because the critical question is, who was his first teacher? Who was the first woman in his life that damaged him to the point where he wanted white women above black women and hated black people instead of loving them? I mean, you have to look at the foundations of what led to this dysfunction in order to get to that cure. And again, this dysfunction started with the system of white supremacy doing damage to the black female mind and to black people's minds. And again, this is what black empowerment is all about, trying to get us not only to, again, fight against the whole system about the tangibles for a vote, but also gets us to get our heads right as related to ourselves and our perception of self. Because unless we deal with our perception of self, what's going to happen to many of us is, again, we're going to remain in this foundation of self-hatred, remain inside of this. What's going on, Mr. Chris? Glad to see you here. You're going to be remaining in this foundation of self-hatred, like this Telbo Rackins, thinking, oh, white is better, white is superior. I'm not good unless I have somebody white accepting me. I'm not good unless somebody white tells me I'm good. No, you are good because God made you. You are good because God has given you gifts and talents. God has given you skills. Again, God has made you someone who has a great purpose in this life. And again, God is greater than man. And you basically, again, disrespect God when you go out here and you seek out white validation, because you're making this white man into a god before him. And that's, again, a violation of his commandments of loving him as with all your heart, soul, and spirit, as related to the two commandments Jesus gave us, and to, again, love your neighbor as yourself, which is what Telbo Rackins wasn't doing, because black people weren't his neighbor. He didn't see black people as a neighbor because he didn't love them, and he didn't love himself. And when it comes down to guys like this, again, this is where, again, these guys are really sad, because, again, they've basically, again, put this white supremacist above themselves. And again, that's, again, idolatry as I see it, just plain old idolatry. And again, self-hatred is basically idolatry, because, again, you're saying that God didn't do the right thing when he made you black. God wasn't right when he made you black, and that you don't deserve his love or his grace because you're black. Again, that self-hatred, people are not really looking at it and looking at how destructive and detrimental it is to us. I mean, this self-hatred basically, again, it can basically mess us up. And a lot of us don't want to look at how we are raising our children, because we have to be very careful about what we put in front of them, because what we could put in front of them can put them on a road to self-hatred, a road to black self-hatred. And we have to, again, watch what we put in front of our children. This is why new black media is important, because with new black media, we can start putting media in front of our children where they can see pictures of themselves, pictures of themselves where they're the center of attention, where they are seen as being important, where they are seeing images where you're seeing a black person loving another black person, or another black person, again, showing care for another black person. This is very important for our children to see because, again, when you're raising children, you want them to learn to love being black, and have a belief that, oh, I can be a success and I can be and be black, and I don't have to sacrifice my blackness to be a part of society. That's a big mistake a lot of us make, thinking we have to sacrifice ourselves as a black person to be accepted by white people and think white acceptance equals success. No, white acceptance does not mean success at all. No, when you accept yourself as black and you take pride in yourself as black, that is a statement of success. When you say that I love being black, and I say that to myself all the time, I love being black, I'm a handsome black man, and I'm not going to let anybody tell me that I am less than. No, I'm not going to let anybody tell myself that I'm less than, or tell myself that I'm less than, because when you start telling that somebody is better than you, you are saying that you are less than. Good evening, Gabriel. Glad to see you here. What you're doing is lowering your value, and you never want to lower your value because, again, you have a value in this world, and you have a value, and again, you need to see what's great about you. You need to see what's successful about you. I mean, that's the problem that I see with a lot of black men, like a Telbo, Rackins. Again, they grew up with this culture of self-hatred, that we have to really push back on because, again, you don't want to grow up like this. No, you don't want to grow up like this, where you're, again, saying, oh, there's something wrong with me for being black. No, you're perfect being black. This is what God made you, and God loved you enough to make you a black person. And again, black, it does not mean second best. No, it means the best. It means that you are the best that God made. And if God made you, and He never makes mistakes, He knows what He's doing, and He knows what He's doing because He loves you and He wants you to have the best. But you have to get your mind right to want to have the best. You have to get your mind right to want to be the best. And that's what people do when they start to love themselves. They want the very best for themselves. They want to achieve the very best. And again, they want to go out here and persevere towards getting the very best and living the abundant life that God wants to give them. And again, the way you do that is you have to come out of this whole mindset of self-hatred and find your self-worth, find your value in this world, and understand that you can be greater than settling for second best or putting yourself in a place where you're number two. No, winners make themselves number one, and winners make themselves number one because they understand that there's only one person at the top, and that in their lives, and that is them, and they put God first in front of them again. But the whole thing is they see them as the number one living human being around them. Again, that's what a winner does, and they want, again, to meet a high standard for success for themselves. That's what a winner was. And again, this is why I want to do the live stream about winning, because you got to get that winner's mindset. Because white supremacy wants you to have the loser's mindset. That's what Telbo Rackins had, the loser's mindset that was taught to him from when he was very young. But we've got to start teaching our kids the winner's mindset. And I may go in depth on that in a full live stream soon in the future, because we need to start talking about winning. We need to start getting our whole mindset on winning, because the winner's mindset, this is why you push back against the whole foundations of self-hatred. The self-hatred mindset, you have to push back on it and see yourself the way God sees you. God sees you as a winner. He sees you as somebody who can live an abundant life. He wants to give you the very best. And again, in order to get the very best, you've got to get your head in a place where you see yourself as a winner and you can see all the opportunities all around you. So before I get ready to wrap up tonight's stream, I wanted everybody to know that the books of the SJS Direct 2025 catalog are going to start launching on March 21st with John Haynes' A Thorn in My Side. And you can pre-order John Haynes' A Thorn in My Side at Amazon.com right now, or you can wait for the paperback on March 21st. And this is a big book with over 100 pages. So it's 100 pages of big action as the man who rules the world takes on an agent from the CIA from the Black Boule. And you can pick up this book on March 21st in Kindle format and digital format and paperback format. And you can pre-order your Kindle version right now on Amazon.com or your digital copies at Draft the Digital and Google Play. And on April 25th, I will be launching Esteemed Season of The Witch Girl with a great homage cover from Bill Walko of the late John Romita's legendary Amazing Spider-Man 39 cover. And in this book, the aspiring angel takes on a wicked witch girl in this follow-up to the Esteemed series book, Esteemed the Witches of Eastland. And you can get this book in paperback on April 25th, or you can pre-order your digital copy right now on Google Play and Kindle and Amazon.com and other online booksellers like Draft the Digital and the iBookstore and Barnes & Noble and other booksellers. So, again, great cover with a homage from John Romita's Spider-Man 39. And this is a cover by Mike Williams. And I also have the one of the 2024 books, Isis Amari's Revenge. And you can get all the other SJS Direct Universe books like Amari's Revenge and the previous 2024 books like Dark Incubus and Horror in the Hamptons. All those books are available on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle format. And you can also find them at other online booksellers like Draft the Digital, Google Play, Barnes & Noble, and big box retailers like Walmart and Target. And I got some good news about the action figure review that I did of Frazetta Girls Vampirella. The people at Frazetta Girls left a comment on the review video that I did, and that really made my day last night when I got the review from, when I got that response from them. And I was really happy to see that because I oftentimes do these reviews and I don't think anybody watches them, but the people at Frazetta Girls did check out the Vampirella review, and that really made my day as a toy collector because I do these reviews because it's a passion of mine and I love sharing action figures with people. Now, I also have the John Haynes at Death Store comic that's available on Lulu.com. You can pick up that comic on Lulu right now for the same price as the 2022 Kickstarter. And you can pick up my men's issues books on Amazon.com that will help you with your life and your career. Those books, again, will help you out, like the Stop Simping in the Workplace, The Man Crisis, and other books. And I also, again, if you want to help out the channel, you can drop a donation to the PayPal or the Cash App by clicking the links in the description box. Now, everything in this stream was not meant to bash black women, but to get everybody to understand the foundations of self-hatred and help you be able to improve the quality of your life and help you do better with your life. Now, I want to thank everybody like Mogul Maze and One Phobos and Derek Johnson and Gabriel and Z-Ken and everybody for coming out to tonight's stream. And I really appreciate you guys coming out to spend your morning with me and your evening with me. I'm really glad that you guys came out to this week's stream, and I hope you'll be here for next week's stream. Everybody have a good evening, and everybody have a good night.